Hey, it's Mike again.
Arne, hi.
That's
I see you
exciting.
were online already.
Hey, it seems to be a regular thing, huh? We're getting together.
Absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
Good. Well, we have a good reason, right? We have a good reason because we have one more topic to talk about. We have spent a time together talking about why we're doing a Pillars of Customs Compliance course, how we know each other, and why we work well together. We've spent quite a lot of time talking about the customs valuation bit. We had a session on HS classification and the reason why goods need to be classified correctly. We also recently talked about origin and the need for preferential, non-pref origin free trade agreements and the likes of it. And all these videos are available for viewing. And we did all this because we have a great course over 2 days where we can allow customs practitioners, new or established, to really take time out and deep dive into the pillars of fundamental customs compliance. We said that they would be origin, valuation, and classification. And then there is a fourth element. And that element ties all of them together. And that is the management, the procedures, the processes, the questioners. Okay, now I know why. Now tell me how. So in this video, we're going to share some top tips of things that we are going to discuss in more detail at the Pillars of Customs Compliance course. But overall, I guess my first question, Mike, would be, so how do I do it? What's best practice in customs management? What you say?
Well, let me go back slightly to where you said that we bring all of these things together. I often compare this to mixing ingredients and then trying to pour them into a small hole. And that small hole is the customs authorities. You bring all of these details together: valuation, origin, classification, and you try to bring them into the gateway of the customs authorities in a consistent manner. And the only way to do that is to actually funnel them. You need to funnel them, and they need to support each other. So they need to say the same thing. All of these different definitions, all of these different documents that you're going to be submitting or keeping for potential submission, they need to be consistent and talk about the same thing. And I often say to, when I try to educate young people in my company, I try to say what customs wants to see from you is that you say what you do and then you do what you say. So if you say something is a value of so much, that the documents support that value. If you say something has an origin of X, that all of the documents support that and don't question that. The biggest mistake you can make is to build up this carefully designed building of valuation, origin, and classification, and then just leave one brick out that brings the whole building down.
So what I started to say to people is, look, you have a customs declaration and you can't read it because it's like a little, it's like a child starting to read. First, you look at pictures, you can't read anything. Then you learn how to read it, and before you know, the entire book unlocks itself. And the same is with a customs declaration. When you know where something is, where, for example, the commodity goes, where the origin goes, you can then decipher it and you can find out and you can actually decipher the customs declaration. And that creates a beautiful story as to where something is, when something was, what is being imported, to whom, to which process and procedures. And all of that, as you say, needs to be right. So what are the tips?
Don't forget, Arne, that whoever reads that story is the guy on the other end, right? The guy at the customs authorities who's going to slap penalties on you or taxes on you. You need to write a story that he will understand and be able to attach to the goods that are being transacted across the border. If you don't tell your story right, he will get the picture wrong, and you will get the charges. Too high, too low, not enough, wrong, etc., etc.
So what would you say are the top tips that you can give to, without giving all the things we're going to talk about in training, but give us the high level things that importers, exporters, or people interested in taking the Pillars of Customs Compliance course, they should already be thinking about, or that we will think about in more detail in this module?
I would say the most important lesson I learned 35 years ago at the customs authorities from my mentor, who said you take all of the documents that belong to a certain transaction, a cross-border transaction, you spread them out over the table and you look for inconsistencies. So my top advice, if you want to avoid the sharp eyes of the customs inspector, you ensure that there are no inconsistencies across the various documents that come from different origins. There's a waybill, there's an invoice, there's a certificate of origin, there may be a bank statement, there may be all kinds of other statements, packing lists, etc. And they all need to have consistent details across the different documents from different sources. And your job as a customs specialist in a company is to ensure that you catch any inconsistencies before our friendly neighborhood customs officer does.
So this sounds like an audit function. Is there an audit function in customs?
I would say so. There is what we used to call a pre-entry audit and a post-entry audit. And a pre-entry audit, we kind of literally pour over documents and over the customs declaration before we send it to make sure that we're absolutely 100% certain that the details and the data in the customs declaration match the documents that we have. And if something is wrong, we go back to the seller, the shipper, the freight agent, whoever provided us with details that seem out of order, and we go and we update those details. That's all before submission. And then after the submission, we do the post-entry audit where we look at, was the amount of taxes calculated correctly? Did we do the right entry? Did our details line up with other shipments that we've previously done? So yes, I often use the dumbbell model. I don't know whether you've ever been in a workout place where they have these weightlifting.
Look at me, of course.
All right, good. So, lifting a heavy ball is everything happens at the border. You got this ball of activity that you need to lift, and it all happens in a few hours on the border, and the truck is waiting, and the driver is shouting and crying. And I literally say, you need to take apart that ball, and you need to move everything that you do, pre-entry and post-entry. And what's left in the middle is this very thin bar, and you can lift it very easily.
That's right. That's right. Wow. I mean, that's really sound advice, and it's really, really cool to hear from you, because when you speak, Mike, which is really true, experience shows, right? And you are trying, and when I heard you speak about, the bars and the heavy lifting and whatnot, it's really practical, good examples that everybody can understand. And the idea of splitting it pre and post is really something that we're going to explore more of how this can work in companies.
Arne, it's just common sense, and it is money, right? Because where do your containers cost the most money? When they're sitting on the border or in the port, and they're stuck in a port area. They're costing you storage and demurrage and everything else, and this ball gets heavier. You want to catch the mistakes up front, or you want to catch the mistakes at the back end, but not in the port.
So what I really liked about what you've said is because we're going to encounter with all our participants, as we do this being very, very practical and very hands-on, we're going to encounter different ways of managing customs, right? There's the question of where sits customs. Does it sit under finance? Does it sit under supply chain? Hey, some even put it under buying, would you believe? Never mind. And that is a philosophy even. If you put something under buying or finance, the focus may be different than when it sits in the supply chain. And all of this means we will have a different way of organizing customs in companies from our participants. And what is so great, we're going to have some 3-4 hours to discuss how are you organizing customs in a way that meets these objectives of being compliant, as you rightfully said, it must total up to a story, but also optimize duty savings and reducing costs. It's these two things, compliance and duty savings. That's what, if you want to boil it down, that's what customs is all about. And what we can do is we can listen to how you guys are organized in your company. And then, we have Mike, we have Arne to comment on, what are the tweaks? What are the things that we can do to improve it?
Arne, after all, we know what buyers are interested in, right? They are interested in on-time delivery. They're interested that their stock is not stuck. I say it often, I get confused with the English, not my mother tongue, but stock that's sitting on the border being held by customs is the most expensive that buyers have. They don't like it. So we'll help our participants make sure that their shipments are not stuck in the middle and get delivered on time. That may be even more important than duty savings. It's satisfying the customer.
And that's so valuable, right? And that means that with one expedited shipment that would have sat at the port dock for 1 day longer, you can go on this course. you'll have it saved right away. It's really common sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Look, I'm so excited to speak to you about customs management and correct organization of customs in a company to achieve these two goals of compliance, duty savings, and expediting shipments to make sure that they don't get stuck at customs, costing even more money, reach the shelves, reach the customer faster, and therefore allow businesses to grow internationally. And after all, this is what this is all about. We wouldn't be shipping things abroad internationally if we wouldn't have the objective to grow globally. So if we adhere to these rules, then nothing can stop us. Would you agree?
I totally agree, and I think the investment of a few hours is well worth the payoff. That's going to pay off again and again and again over the years.
And especially if I get to spend it with you. Right, Mike, this is perfect. Thank you so much for the time once again. I can't wait to be there.
I'll talk to you next time. Yeah, see you.
Thank you. All the best.